brothers, you could move mountains without lifting a finger.
Minister Malcolm X.
Good news, the chariot is coming.
Who's the greatest? That's right.
Jim Brown takes the ball.
Your record is gonna stand the test of time.
All together, yeah. The entire city of Miami is celebrating. I'm the new heavyweight champion of the world, and I don't even have a scratch on my face. Oh my goodness.
Cash.
Cash?
Why am I so pretty?
Hey, congratulations, champ.
I could get used to that.
I was made in America, land of the free, home of the brave.
This movement that we are in is called a struggle. Because we are fighting for our lives.
Welcome to America.
This ain't about civil rights.
Welcome to America.
They ain't giving black people what they really want.
What's that?
Hey, I was made in America. That's why I'm out here saving America.
Power.
Black power. I like the sound of that.
I wish I lived in America.
We have to be there for each other.
Heard everybody rich, all I gotta do is run, jump, kick. I'm a hit in your area. I done made it to America. I'm amazed at America. Welcome to America.
Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. And today we have a real treat for you. We are talking to the men who head up the cast of the upcoming Amazon movie, One Night in Miami, starting with Aldous Hodge, Kingsley Ben Adir, Leslie Odom, and Eli Gorey. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, brother.
We're going to start off by introducing the AAFCA members who are taking part in our roundtable today, starting with Katia Woods in Philadelphia, Mercedes in Atlanta, Brandon in Germany, Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta, Jill Monroe in LA, and we may have Ruben from Miami join us shortly. Oh, and I'm sorry, Brandon, I didn't see you down there. Brandon Collins in Queens, New York. So I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Hello, everyone. Brandon Collins from the Media and Popcorn Podcast. Phenomenal work all across the board. You guys did a great job. My question for each of you is, what kind of research and practice did you do in order to get into your characters who are also based on Black icons? We can start with Aldous.
So the research really started with trying to dig up a lot of interviews and just recordings of his speeches from the time frame in which we're telling this back in the 60s. Just really seeing who he was, where his mind was at, and what kind of business moves he was making. Found a lot of great, source material in that just for studying his mechanics and sort of his quips and how he handled certain topics, the way he spoke, and didn't really look into what we know of him now today, because I wanted to introduce who he was then that maybe we don't know as well. And it's really fascinating. He really is, quite an eloquent man on the subject matter of business economics and social injustice. And, he knew where he was at. And I feel like he was sort of an outlier in the sense of being a business magnate. So it was fun research. And then also just studying, his moves and his relationships with the other men in this particular film, and just being able to see what that was, because this is about a brotherhood and we're telling that story, and to know him is to know them as well.
Yeah, I feel like you could just you could read and study and watch Malcolm for 2-3 years and still not even be halfway there. But I guess with the time restrictions and trying to figure out who Malcolm was in this story, for me, I was trying to get as much information as I could, as much reading as I could, but I was really, I guess, consciously or subconsciously trying to find as much information as I could to help me access the vulnerable world, the side to Malcolm that may have felt scared or unsure, or just trying to, just information that could sort of help you in your understanding of understanding the humanity in terms of like his fears, and like how how tricky it might have actually been for him at that time, despite the strength, despite being this leader, despite sort of fearlessly taking on the establishment and putting his life on the line for Black people in a way that I'm just, you know, Christ-like. Dick Gregory was really my super source. And there was one interview with him, I think it was an article that really blew my mind, and he was talking about a Malcolm, a friend, you know, and a husband and a father, and someone who was sweet and bashful, and someone who really jumped in and out of that personality, someone who the demagogue was he was sort of explaining to me that was one side to Malcolm, but there was really another side. And I guess more than anything, I you know, dialect and trying to keep the weight down and trying to, you know, scene play, like, and each day that we had, you know, how to come at the day, it was more just sort of a deep meditation on how fucking difficult that must have been for him, you know, like it was in deep trouble, you know. He was in a real spot, and you know, any information I could find that would sort of support that or support that side of Malcolm's humanity, I just lapped up. But yeah, Dick Gregory, I would say, was he was on my wall. You know, I had a lot of quotes from Dick that, you know, that I woke up and sort of meditated on.
Great. Eli or Leslie?
I spent a lot of time just researching pretty much everything. I read every book I could find. I watched tons and tons of interviews. There were tapes that he had made for his daughters, just to kind of get a more personal side as opposed to the performing side. Learned a lot about my relationship with Malcolm. There was a book, Blood Brothers, that was a really good book that I relied on for those kind of interactions. And it was informative toward the script as well. There was a lot of things that were relating between that book and the script so it was really helpful. And then just as far as the process of kind of building the character, you know, it was just a lot of discipline. I originally went for a role to play him 2 years before I got this role. I didn't get it, so I decided to continue to pursue playing him in another avenue and building the character. And I was going to do a play, and the play I was preparing for, I ended up getting this right when I was going to put up a play. And so it ended up being, you know, like a perfect timing opportunity. But I had a dialect coach, a fantastic dialect coach, Trey Cotton, who I found, and was from the South and was able to kind of tell me a lot about just the culture of the South, but also the particular culture of Louisville, and building that accent from really a cultural place first, understanding the environment, understanding the heat, understanding the oppression, understanding how that affects how someone carries themselves, how someone may speak, and how you have to think about a lot of things before you spoke in that time, and how that affects how you communicate. And then building, you know, the basic kind of forming vowels and flat A's and different things like that. And then also for my physical training, because I was also fighting in the film, I worked with my personal trainer, Kenneth O, building, you know, more mass, because Ali was walking around at 6'3", 220. So I got up to about 215, 217. I'm 6'2", so it kind of was similar structurally. And we did that by gaining about 40 pounds of just weight, and then cutting down to have about 15 to 20 pounds of muscle. But it was kind of a tricky process, because I also had to continue to box and try to stay light and try to stay fast and keep my reflexes, and so that it would on camera read as though, you know, I mean, I'm portraying the greatest athlete of all time. So I think, you know, it's really important to just respect that and put a lot of time to that. So I had several boxing coaches, but you know, the one who really kind of helped me hone everything together was Rob Sal, who worked on Creed and Clarissa Shields' story, and was on set for Ali, and he's done, you know, great work in the past, and he really kind of we crafted the Ali style with the fighting and the language and all that stuff kind of came together. So it was a long process. It was a lot of commitment, a lot of kind of fully investing yourself into it, but it was, it all paid off when we got to set and everybody was so committed and we could all just really not worry about all the preparation and just really play and talk and communicate with each other and tell that beautiful story.
Yeah, for me, as you can imagine, it was about the listening. I had hours and hours of music of Sam's to listen to, which also tells you a lot about a person's psychology. You can learn a lot about the heart of a man or woman, or the soul of a man or woman from the way they lay down a song. I know, when I'm recording, I think about that. I think about that I want to leave something for my children and my grandchildren to know me, to know something of me in these records, which Sam did. So that was the first thing. And then there was much less footage of him speaking, but of course there are interviews and little snippets and all of that stuff was helpful. And I worked with the same coaches as Eli, the same dialect coach, brilliant guy, Trey Cotton. You guys should talk to him too. Brilliant. It's very, very hard to find Black dialect coaches in this business. I have been around and I've looked. And through Eli brought Trey to us, and I thought that Kingsley talked a little bit about the time. We didn't have a year to prepare. We had weeks to get ready. And when we started at the table read, Eli, I thought, was just in such a great place already. I didn't know Eli had been working for years, which I love that about you. But anyway, I was like, Trey, you gotta get in with me. And he was excellent, because when you work on the dialect, you're making psychological choices too. You're learning about all of the things that layer in, to anyway, to make up how we speak. I'm gonna stop talking. But yeah, so those things. It was the music and the dialect coach working with Trey. That was my prep. I'll stop talking so somebody can ask something. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Mercedes here with She Critiques in Atlanta. I thought this was a phenomenal film, one of my top 5 for the year. What I really like about this is that it's an evolution of growth for each of your characters, each of these men that we know and where we see them today. That room almost served like a pressure cooker for growth. Can you talk about where you think each of the characters you portrayed, where they were mentally when they first stepped in the room? We can have the same order as well.
I kick it off. That's a fantastic question. I know that for Jim Brown in this particular time, he was going through his transition. It was that next year that he had, he was retired from the NFL and then he moved on to film, and he was making that decision here where we find him. And then a few years after that, he started the Black Economic Union, I think around like 67, 68. So he was figuring out how to really take control of his value, the value that he put out into the world, but there was no return on interest. He wasn't getting it back. And he wanted to figure out how to get in front of that, how to get in control of that. And then also having the internal conversation of what does that mean, not just for him, but for the people around him, which then led to the establishment of Black Economic Union to help spread that knowledge and awareness and education of, economic power for Black people. So where he is, I feel, is that transitional stage of professional and cultural growth within himself to understand what his real purpose is. It's not just about what he can get for himself. It's not what he can bring home. Just, if the culture ain't coming up, regardless of what you get for yourself, we not coming up. So I feel like he is in that moment trying to really explore the real value of his potential for the particular space that he's in right now, for the figure that he is. And, sitting in the room with three other monster figures, with the lights pointed at them, but also targets pointed at them. And they're just having that real conversation, I think, about their potential and their real purpose together, the work that they can do, because they do have so much power in their hand. And in this instance, power, it's really just a synonym for responsibility. So it's really a dialogue about what their responsibility is to themselves and to their people. So I'm gonna jump off here.
Yeah, in terms of like how Malcolm was feeling when he sets foot into that room, it's an imaginative interpretation of what he might have felt like. So I don't want to say that I don't want to, say for certain how he, would have been feeling. But I think from research that there was definitely a strong sense that Malcolm's relationship with the nation was coming to an end, and that his relationship with Elijah Muhammad was seriously crumbling. He was on a ban. There were conflicting ideas about, politics and religion, and how much he was in the press and how much they didn't want him to be in. And I think there was a real sense that his life was in danger and things were changing for him in a real way. I mean, listen, I spoke to people at the Nation and stuff who said there's a completely different narrative, a narrative that is something separate to what we all know. But I think in terms of, for the sake of this story and for the sake of the biography that Malcolm put out there, and my rough sense that for this story, it was really important to show Malcolm in those stakes and to explore emotionally what it may have been like to be under that sort of pressure, and to have that much weight on your shoulders in terms of being, right at the forefront of the movement, and all of the responsibility that he may or may not have felt like. There was a little part of me that, as we were shooting, I was always like, why didn't you just go to Nigeria? Why didn't you just get out of Queens? Just like, why didn't you just run? Why didn't you take everyone and just go and take a break? And he stayed right in the danger zone. He stayed at his home, and he stood strong, and he refused to be pushed out. And he was, tragically taken from us as a result. Like I think the interesting thing about coming into this film as an actor was like, this is such a unique opportunity to like have a go and guess what that might have been like, and to explore a different side to Malcolm in a way that maybe we haven't seen before. But as an actor, I tried to ramp the stakes up emotionally as much as I could, just to try and walk the line and see how far we could go with that, and keep it in and at the same time keep it grounded and yeah, try and maybe show a part of Malcolm that we haven't seen before.
For Cassius, I think, he just won the heavyweight championship of the world. He's the youngest ever heavyweight champion at that time. He was an 8-1 underdog. And what most people don't know is that he had been practicing Islam for several years. It wasn't something that had just come up. He told people that he was attending church and that he was a Christian when interviewed. He would make ambiguous statements. So they say, do you go to church? Oh yeah, I go any city I'm in. I'll always make sure I'll find out where to worship, And so he's obviously talking about the mosque, but he can't say it out loud. Or he'll say, I pray every day, But he was very smart about how he communicated with the media up until that point, when it came to that issue, because he knew he could be, he could be ostracized, and his opportunities could be cut off before he really even had a chance to fulfill his calling. So at that moment, when he walks into that room with probably four of the most powerful men in the country, let alone Black men in entertainment, and to be heavyweight champion of the world, and to be that young, and he dominated in the fight. It wasn't even close. I think he was just, I don't know if there's words, but elated. You know, I think he was just literally, I think you see it in the scene. He's just, it's something that you've worked for your entire life. He's been fighting since he was 12 years old as an amateur. And, you know, he never lost a fight. He won a gold medal, he won Golden Gloves, he won national champion, you know, and coming from a background where he wasn't impoverished, but he was living under such severe Jim Crow law, where even though financially his parents were lower middle class or middle class, the oppression that he faced every day. You know, he threw his gold medal into the river in Louisville because they wouldn't let him eat at restaurants, even when he came back with his gold medal on. They celebrated him. He went in to eat wearing his gold medal, and they told him he couldn't eat there. So, you know, I think all that oppression, all that repression, all that ostracization, and not being allowed to really be who he was, in that moment, he felt free, and he felt exuberant, and he felt loved because he was with the people that cared about him the most. And yeah, I think he was just full of joy at that moment. You know, I can say for me, getting this role to be able to, you know, honor that memory was like, you know, when I knew Gina King was directing it. I mean, I knew the script, and I knew this was a watershed moment in my career, you know. And so, and like I said, preparing for a role that I never knew was there, and I didn't know how it was going to be there for years, and then getting the opportunity to portray it on this kind of a scale, you know, I think I got a small glimpse into what it's like when you work so hard for something for such a long time, and then you actually get to hold it, and there aren't really words, you know, and it takes so long to even just, like, I'm still processing it, so I can only imagine that, you know, as he had lots of emotion stepping into that room, but it was probably months and months and maybe years and decades later reflecting before he could really process what that moment meant, you know, because it meant so much to so many people, to his family, to his community, to the nation, to his own legacy, and even now to us today to be making a film about it. I mean, it's still reverberating. So yeah, that moment is very, very powerful. That's how I can describe it.
Yeah, I think for Sam, you know, Cassius was so special to Sam. He was special to all of, you know, we all gather there because of young Cassius. You know, there's something about him. We all, we're so proud of him. We're so proud to know him. He's doing things that the three of us, you know, as great as we are, there's something about Cassius that he represents. You know, we all feel like we see ourselves in him, in that young man. So to be there with him on that night, what I wanted for Sam was to be full of life on that night. If people, you know, because of the tragic, unthinkable way that his story ends, there's a lot of people, that's all they know. I tell them I'm playing Sam Cooke, and they're like, oh yeah, and didn't he, you know, there's some scandal in the way he died or something, you know what I mean? They boil him down to, you send me, a change is gonna come, and then he died in this tawdry, strange way. So anyway, I didn't want to deal with December at all in February 1964. Sam is gonna be gone in December. So some, you know, because in art we deal with symbolism and representation. You know, we're telling a big story in this film. So I wanted, you know, some representation of that, you know, that like the star burns brightest before it's snuffed out kind of thing, you know, that on this night, if Sam could be full of life, you know, it would honor him. And I thought, you know, if December wasn't lurking at all in his mind, he doesn't know that that's the way his story is going to end. None of us know that. So he shows up there, he's excited to celebrate this monumental achievement for the race, for his little brother Cassius, and he wants to party. He wants to party, and and partake in the joys of this life and his success. And yeah, that's Sam.
Thank you all so much.
Hi everyone, Katya Woods, Couple Social out of Philadelphia. My question, I'm so glad you spoke a little bit about it, Leslie, so I want to expound on it a little bit, is for you. There is something in our community that we don't get the luxury of sometimes, which is to celebrate and sit in our success, especially when you have fame, for lack of a better word. Talk about how, you know, for Sam, for me, it seemed like he was being questioned on his Blackness because he is enjoying the fruits of his labor. You know what I mean? He wants to stay in a nice hotel, not at the nice Black hotel. You know what I mean? Talk about why is it that whenever we have, you know, money, success, there's this little part of us that feels guilty because are we doing too much, for lack of a better word?
Well, what a great question. But I think that, you know, a mentor of mine gave me some really good advice a while ago. You know, it was a charge, really. You know, I was talking to her about, like, it was for the first time in my life, I was feeling free. I was thinking about, as what it was, I was thinking about like signing this contract, this contract that would have locked me in for a few years into something. And I was like, you know, I am nervous to do that because for the first time I feel free. And she said, well, you know, the first responsibility of freedom is to make sure somebody else is free too, right? That's what she said. You know, the first responsibility of freedom is to make sure that somebody else can feel that same thing, that it's not just for you. And because of our experience, because of Black people's experience here on this soil, in these United States, you know, because of the way it began, our freedom we're tied to one another. And so how free can we be if we're not all free? You know, and so of course that nagged at Sam, and that nags at any of us on this Zoom. You know, there are, you know, and there are studies, you know, the part of the way we haven't been able to get free in this country is because of, you know, the economic strains that systemic racism puts on us individually. A Black person that, you know, yes, you can, you know, if you manage to climb up a little bit, you know, we're tied to the generation before us that maybe didn't get to do that. And so we inherit debt. We inherit this thing. So anyway, I think that, of course, Sam was resentful and he was audacious, and, you know, he was a full man. So he was going to do what he wanted to do. But yeah, that he had that nagging responsibility, that he knew that he was responsible for more than himself. And I think what makes him so upset with Malcolm is that he is already doing so much. He is already doing so much. And Malcolm is asking, but can you do more?
No, I agree. Love the Christmas album. And I wish all of you tremendous joy on this amazing film journey. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. This is Brandon Jones from LRM Online. How are you all doing?
What's happening, brother?
So my question for you all is, so you guys have kind of touched on this a little bit. And I think, Alexander, you talked about it the most. You said power is a synonym for responsibility. And one of the conversations that Jim Brown was having with Malcolm X in this movie that really stuck out to me was the conversation about, you know, Black people are dying in the streets every day, and there's not enough room for people to be staying on the sidelines. And Jim Brown says, we're not weapons. And it was about the use of platforms. And I guess the question I have for you guys is, what kind of conversations among the cast did that conversation now in this day and age, the use of platforms and things like that, did that spark any conversations among you all?
Where Kingsley at?
No, I was going to be like, yeah. This is really Aldis's area, because he speaks so beautifully and articulately on this matter. You know, there was so many conversations that we had depending on what scene we were shooting. We were connecting and throwing ideas out at such a rate. I can't really remember everything, but Aldis the best man for this.
And initially, when Kingsley and I shot that scene, the tone of it, I think, was presumed to be a bit different than we did it. At least in my mind, coming to it, it was like, we were trying to play to figure it out, but we had rehearsed it a couple times and we just kind of found this groove, where, because it really is a scene about understanding one another. It's like, the way I see it personally is a lot of us have the same goal. We just have different ways of trying to get there. We have different standards, we have different means, different access to certain things. When it comes to how we use our platforms, and I think that is part of the discussion for these men in this particular film, we do have to be aware and responsible. If we do put ourselves out there, there is cause and effect. We cannot, I just personally feel myself, we cannot presume to know who is going to be influenced by us in any particular way. But we should know that given our positions, there will be some influence. So whatever that statement is, or however we put out our action, we should be prepared, fully prepared to take responsibility and stand behind that action, and to a degree, the cause and effects of said action. I know that whatever I do, I live in my truth. And if you don't like it, it is what it is. There are a lot of conversations being had, or have that I've had lately, with a lot of people who don't understand what's going on with Black culture, or don't understand the pain and are far removed from it. A lot of people who come to me and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation. I'd like to learn. And I say, are you ready? Because I'm gonna tell you the truth. And the truth ain't pretty. The truth ain't always gonna be what you wanna hear. But if you wanna learn, you're not here to be comfortable. You're here to be uncomfortable. You're here to understand what work needs to be done, because there is work to be done. So a part of the platform is allowing yourself to educate without bias. A part of using that platform responsibly is using your resources to help influence other people to empathize and understand the mercy that needs to be distributed to other people that you don't really know. Because Black people have been going through something for a long time that a lot of people are not on the receiving end of. They don't understand our plight because they are not affected by our plight. So there's a lack of, there's miscommunication sometimes. And of course, plain ignorance and bias to a degree, but sometimes people don't understand, well, why y'all, you got it just like everybody else, and we all work and we do this, and why y'all complaining, why y'all mad? No, we have very different standards. And I've spent a lot of time this year talking to people to get them to understand that we live a very different reality. Trying to talk people into understanding that they need to stop commoditizing Black pain and trying to capitalize on the Black experience without actually doing something that benefits Black culture in a progressive way. So I can't speak to how people personally use their platforms. I think I do have my opinions, but it would be irresponsible of me to particularly give them on any one individual when it comes to what we see in the big spectrum. But I feel like people should just be aware that there's cause and effect. And as far as Black people, as a culture, I know a lot of us are trying to progress. And I think that working together to hear and listen and understand each other in a way that there is no angst or bias, but just more community and understanding to continue to move forward, which is what we're already doing. I think that helps push us further. And when it comes to dealing with other people, it teaches us how to teach them, really, because it boils down to education. And I feel like that's something that this movie directly exhibits, from the perspectives of all four of these men. They're really just having a conversation, not an argument. They're not having a fight. They're brothers in a room trying to figure out how do we connect and communicate. And I think that's so very teachable right now for this generation, for all people in this country to understand how can we translate the pain of the people that's going on to a point where I can now do something about trying to heal that pain.
Nobody's going to answer it better than that. Y'all want to ask another question?
I was thinking the same thing.
He did that, though. Gotta give him his props. He did that.
He always does.
I appreciate y'all, but you know, that's something we found. I mean, all four of us, I think, like Kingsley said, we did have these conversations, and I think that, you know, we came to it with our hearts full, with the right intentions, because we knew of the value and the importance. And I think that's a part of why each of us dedicated ourselves so deeply to the men that we were representing, and to the value of the potential of, you know, Ken Power's words and Regina's vision with this film, is because we ourselves have an understanding of our purpose here, and that we can use our platforms to try to do something, hopefully do something what I call as an asset to the conversation of progress. I feel like that's what a part of, or at least a percentage of each of our motivation. If, you know, and I'm speaking, not to speak on behalf of my fellas here, but just in personally talking to each of them and why we came to set and what we did and how much we cared, I felt like we were working with our purpose for the intention of progress. It wasn't just about, I'm in a movie, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, we about to do something, you know, we about to light a fire.
Jill Monroe, JacksonStilettoJill.com.
Hello.
So, hey, how are you? My question is, there were so many vulnerabilities shown in a room full of Black men on complex subjects and layering. I want to know, and this is for any of you, have you taken any of the lessons from those conversations back into your own life and used them? And if so, what would that be?
I would say the boldness and just willingness to truly express in a vulnerable and transparent way what you are truly believing and thinking and feel you're called to do. And especially with Cassius with regards to his faith. You know, I'm a Christian. You know, I love Jesus Christ, and a lot of times when it comes to faith, people will try to marginalize you. They'll say, okay, well, we don't want you to talk about that. You know, you can be an actor, you can be a boxer, you can do whatever. You can talk about politics, you can talk about economics, but you can't talk about faith, because that makes people uncomfortable. And somehow Cassius found a way, and he didn't always have it, but he developed a way to be completely honest and bold about his faith and his beliefs, and that being the center of his life, without making people feel like they were not included in his life. He was able to be a champion for the whole world. He was able to be a representative of what it means to really bring people together and cross different barriers, cultural barriers, and uniting people. There were a lot of things that he believed that were very unpopular. You know, he was not pro-integration, for instance. You know, people don't realize that. During this movement, which was trying to end segregation, he would often say, you know, we don't need to end segregation. We just need equal opportunity within segregation. That was something that many Black people derided him for. And at the same time, he was also not pro-interracial dating. There was a lot of things that were very controversial that he was very bold about and very honest about that he believed. But no one ever looked at him and said, oh, he doesn't love people, or he's against people, or he has bigoted beliefs. People knew, because they could authentically tell that he was being honest about what he thought was right and what he thought was wrong. But he didn't stop you from having your opinion about what you think is right and what you think is wrong. You know, I don't agree with a lot of the things that he said, but I respect, and I think most people respect, that he was honest, that he didn't try to fit into a box, that he didn't say, well, I'm Black, so I got to believe this, or, you know, this is what's politically, you know, acceptable, so I'm going to say this. You know, at the time when he went against the Vietnamese War, that was a very popular war. Most people, I think 70% of Americans, were promoting that war. They were saying they wanted the war. And he said, no, I don't believe in going over there. I don't believe in fighting against those people. I don't believe in oppressing another nation when I'm oppressed here in my own nation. Well, several years passed, and all of a sudden, the narrative shifted to being on the side of what he had already been saying for several years. So, you know, not everything he said was right. Not everything he said everyone agrees with. But I think his transparency, his willingness to be bold, his willingness to stand on his convictions, I think are things that are commendable. I think that's what people really loved about him the most. is that he was fearless in and outside of the ring. And I think that's something that I would like to apply to my life in whatever ways I can, to just be more honest and to be more straightforward and to not feel like you have to be so polarized or be so, in one camp or another, but that we can all feel and think and speak freely as individuals. And that's what being human is. That's really the core of your humanity, is your voice and your ability to have your own free thoughts. Whether you're Black or whatever cultural group you're a part of, Muslim or whatever your belief systems are, you don't have to be, I'm trying to think of the right word, but you don't have to have an agenda that you're attached to.
Hey, Eli, I really appreciate those words. When I was a little girl, I met Muhammad Ali, and that just lifted me up for the rest of my life, because in his presence, there was such greatness, and it just inspired me. And I loved how you captured the evolution of that, the beginning of it. But for all of you guys, in doing this movie where acting is so central to it, what impact did it have for Regina King to be the director? Someone who, I imagine from your previous experiences, this is someone who can really relate to peeling back the layers. So please share what that experience was.
There's probably nobody better, in peeling back the layers. And so all I can say is that whenever Regina came to offer me a thought or an idea about my Sam, she always made me better. She always rerouted me in a way that made the scene or the moment more interesting, more human, more vulnerable. She just always made me better. And that's not true of all directors. I'm just saying that is a unique quality that she has. It's a little sensitive thing that we do. And so if you can have that trust that, like, whenever this person starts walking from behind the camera over here, they're going to tell me something that is going to send me further down the right path. It's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And then, her vision and her leadership was spot on. And speaking to the sort of exhibition of the vulnerabilities, right? A lot of that had to do with Regina carving out sort of the humanity in these people, as opposed to the idea of who these people are. She really wanted to carve out the human beings and protect these stories and show brotherhood. As she often says, this is for her a love letter to the Black man. And, we had beautiful words from Kemp, but with Regina's vision and her execution of sort of the dance we had to do with one another, she really showed what, that love is. Brother to brother, Black person to Black person, what does that love really look like? And I just feel like with her experience, with her choices for certain, her humility, and then her patience, really allowing us actors to breathe lives into these men the way that we understood, the way that we felt most natural with. It really felt like a collaborative process of building and growing. And I like to say that I surround myself with teachers, because I want to, in every experience, grow a little bit beyond who I am in that moment. And she definitely is a professor when it comes not only to the craft of directing, but also when it comes to understanding storytelling and building on layers to help translate the message. I feel like with what we do with cinema, we are having a conversation with our audience, and she made sure that the conversation we were having had absolute clarity. She's really just she's an outlier, really, really a magnet at what she does, and I'm looking forward to whatever she does next.
It was do we have time to say something? I could rant about Regina for, and her empathy. And I'll share a story. There was one particular night where we were experiencing some technical problems with light and camera, and we were losing a lot of coverage because of reflection, just different technical things. And it was one of the only nights where I joined her behind the monitor to like see what we were getting, because it was getting late and we needed solutions, and I needed to try and really help because we were running out of time. And I think we went through 9 takes, and it was really painful because it was just, I was late and I was looking for, and I was there. And then she went, I think we were on take 6, and she went, put a circle around that one. And that was the only take that I went, oof, that was the one. And I was just like, God, I'm working with someone who I can absolutely trust, like understands truth and performance in a way that I haven't experienced before. Like I've never been on set with someone who has that kind of understanding of acting process. And I get it feels cheesy because we keep repeating the same things, like her understanding of process and this, but it's so, as an actor, man, it's everything. Like to be on set with someone who just creates that atmosphere where you don't feel scared, where you feel like, come on, like you feel up for the challenge and like ready to like make mistakes and try things out. That's how you get to the gold. And like, you know, and set can feel like such a technical beast sometimes. It's like hundreds of different things going on and noise and crowd. And our jobs are always to just meditate and be like, it's going to be our faces up there. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like everyone can do whatever they want to do, but like we have to really be on, you know. And when there's an atmosphere, I don't know, there was just such a special vibe on set. Like I felt like there was so much trust, you know. Yeah, in a way that I haven't experienced yet. I hope I get to experience it again. Well,
I would agree, you know, with Leslie. I don't think anyone else could have done this. You know, I think she just had so many unique qualities that make her such a phenomenal director and made her the perfect person to tell this story as well. You know, for her understanding, just as someone who, like Aldous said, how she said several times herself that this was a love letter to Black men, her understanding of that experience, and then as a mother, as a daughter, you know, bringing that compassion for Black men into this story and wanting to be able to tap into that vulnerability that she knows is there and never gets a chance to be shown. Her technical acumen and her ability to have a vision for what this film was going to be and the narrative, and to bring that play and put it on screen in a way that brought it to life and didn't make it, you know, it didn't feel like a play. It felt like these men having a conversation and talking about things that never really get a chance to be talked about. Her acting, you know, which, you know, goes without saying, she's, you know, an all-time great actress. You know, and I think, you know, what Kingsley was talking about as far as being able to see things, I often, you know, I would talk to her when we were on set in between takes and things, because I would be like, oh yeah, you were on Jerry Maguire when you were right next to Cuba when he won his Oscar. Oh yeah, you were in Ray right next to Jamie Foxx when he won his Oscar. Oh yeah, you were on Friday right next to Chris Tucker when he did one of the greatest comedic performances in our time. You know, like I would just think over and over again, all these people that she's seen give all-time great performances as well as her own. So it was, you know, it was mind-boggling, and you could see it. She understands what goes into making a great film, and the attention to detail and attention and true excellence in her art form. And I've said this in a couple of interviews, but I really truly think she's going to be remembered as being a top actress of all time. She's probably going to be remembered more as a director by the time she's done. I think she'll win several Oscars. I think she's going to have an incredible career, because it's not just her acting ability that she brings and her ability to communicate with actors, but she has an uncanny ability to communicate with the crew, to pick different members of the crew, from wardrobe to set deck to editing to sound to post, to all these people that she can translate between the two groups seamlessly. So, you know, I think we all, you know, we could all just do an interview on how impressed we are with Regina and what an amazing experience that was. But yeah, that's my take.
Thank you all. That was wonderful.
I love her personally.
Kingsley, Eli, Aldous, and Leslie, thank you so much for speaking with us today. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black critics, Thank you for watching. Happy holidays, stay safe, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.